It was just a normal day. I got up that morning, got ready for work, and left. I wasn't aware that anything was going on. I was a teller at the Argent Bank in Houma. It was a small bank. There were about 5 or 6 people working in the bank that day. I was really looking forward to working there that day, to hang out a little bit more with some people that I knew. So I clocked in and got my day started like I normally do. At some point, Chad, my ex-husband, walked into the bank. He was a Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's deputy, so he had his uniform on. When he walked in, my heart dropped. He was there with a duffel bag. Before I had a chance to really register what he was doing, he pulled his gun out and shot into the ceiling and just told everyone to leave. But he wanted us and the tellers that were behind the counter to stay. At that point, he grabbed one of the other girls and started closing the blinds and started just shutting things down. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, what's going on? And I didn't ask any questions initially because I was like in shock. And I kind of realized he's locking us in here. And I was like, this isn't gonna end well. He had us sit in front of the door. There were a group of 3 or 4 girls to my left, and then it was me, and then there was another girl, Pamela, who was sitting about 3 or 4 feet away from me. He was waving the gun around, and so he pointed it at me for a minute. And I really did think he was gonna shoot me. And then he put the gun down for a second, and then he picked it up again. He pointed the gun at Pamela. He shot her.
He killed a woman in the bank shortly after he entered the bank.
I asked him, why are you doing this? What pushed you to take all of these people hostage?
Knowing that you had people's lives in your hands, and if you did it wrong, people would die.
The negotiation, it's a game of expectations. What's the value of a human being?
I was at the office, the New Orleans Field Division office, and we had heard that there was a situation in Houma, Louisiana, where a police officer had taken some bank tellers hostages. And so the SEC special agent in charge of New Orleans, he asked 2 negotiators to volunteer to go to Houma to assist.
This is Gloria, take 4.
And I had just actually graduated from the negotiator school, so I'd never negotiated in my life, so we were really just there to assist and to help out if they needed us. So Jim Bagwell, the other negotiator, we got in the car and we drove to Houma. Honestly, because it was not a federally insured bank and it was a local matter, I thought it might have been over by the time we got there. But when I got there, the Louisiana State Police, the Terrebonne Parish Sheriff's Office, the police department, and the SWAT team was there. Everybody was there. It was a big, big deal. They had a command post set up at a restaurant. The bank was kind of maybe 1 or 2 blocks away.
I remember walking into the restaurant with the team, and it was basically like they were in the middle of having lunch. There were still plates of food people had eaten out of that were just all around. And there was the ad hoc communications center where everybody was. My name is Robert Gilbo. I'm a retired Louisiana state trooper. At that time, I was an investigator with state police.
When I got to the command post, they briefed us on the situation, that there were tellers still in the bank, that Chad Louvieres had shot her in the head. And it was so sad because she happened to be a mother with an 8-year-old child. It didn't make any sense at all. Why take over the bank? Why kill somebody?
And at that point, that's pretty much all we knew, and he was still holding them inside the bank.
He was very angry. He was angry with me. He was angry that our marriage was coming to an end. The other women, they were panic-stricken, terrified and panic-stricken, just like I was. To see what kind of damage a weapon like that does when someone is shot, especially at that close range. So it's an image I'll never forget. I was genuinely surprised it wasn't me, because I was the source of all of his problems, according to him. I was 20 when we got married. We were really young. I met him after he went through basic training in the Air National Guard. Chad was charming. He was sweet, he was charming. Everybody liked him. Everybody that I met him was like, oh, you've got a great guy, you've got a great guy. But our marriage was not good. He was verbally abusive. He was sexually abusive. And he really isolated me from everyone else in our lives. He was extremely jealous. He was very controlling. And he didn't like it if I went somewhere and I was gone too long, or if he didn't know who I was with. And it just progressively got worse. I honestly don't know why he shot her and not me. The next part that I remember is Tommy walking in. Tommy and Chad were longtime best friends. I knew they knew each other for a really long time. And Tommy Cope worked for the sheriff's department.
Tommy had heard the situation taking place over the radio. He didn't actually want to initially get involved because of his relationship with Chad, but he did get involved by going inside the bank without permission.
I just remember him coming in and him seeing Pamela's body and just devastated that his friend did this. And I just remember him being like, oh man, like, what are you doing?
And Chad Louvieres told him that Adele had pushed him too far, and Tommy was asking him if he had any plans, what he wanted to do. Of course, a lot of emotions at that time in Chad Louvieres. He continually talked about how she had pushed him to that limit.
I think he quickly realized there wasn't much that he could do to help de-escalate the situation.
After their conversation, Louvieres asked him to be his ears, to talk for him, and he said he would do that. And Tommy walked out of the bank. At that point,
was an immense, immense amount of fear. And just, I don't know what's going on here. I mean, at that point, everybody was definitely aware that he came in there for me. The breaking point was when I realized that this wasn't normal. Like, this wasn't gonna get better. I wasn't all of a sudden gonna have a loving husband and a loving relationship. And when I realized that I needed to get out of it, I'm like, okay, then let's get a divorce. So that was kind of the beginning of the end. But it didn't stop there. It got worse. At that point, I was staying in the house by myself. He busted open the door, knocked me on the floor, hit me, raped me. I realized at that point that I wasn't safe to stay in my own house. So I ended up moving out of the house and moving in with my dad. And then there was kind of this quiet space, this quiet time. I wasn't hearing from him, but then our divorce papers were ready. One day I'm driving home. He saw me and he pulled me over in his police car. He was telling me that our divorce papers were ready and he was threatening me. Like, I was his and no one else could have me. And he was very clear about that. He was like, we'll get the divorce, but no one else can have you. You're only for me. I was terrified. I told my dad what happened, and my dad called the sheriff of Terrebonne Parish, where Chad worked as a Terrebonne Parish sheriff's deputy. Then the sheriff obviously confronted him. You can't do that kind of thing. And then not but a couple days later was when he walked into the bank.
They all were writing notes to each other. There was such a big commotion, and the stress level was pretty high because he was one of them.
There was actually no formal negotiations operations center that was set up. And Thomas Cope, he had not, to my knowledge, received training in negotiations. And a big problem was that Chad had no idea of what he wanted. He was all emotionally driven, so he really had no substantive demands. But at that time, Louvieres was asked if he needed anything, and he requested a lunch from McDonald's.
I do remember him getting on the phone and talking to someone and asking for food. They came to the agreement to exchange the food for someone that was in the bank with us.
The first hostage was released during lunch. Thomas Copes did an excellent job in getting him to certain points and trying to work getting people out.
I just sat there and listened, tried to learn from the other guys and see what they were doing, how they were negotiating.
At some point, Louviere was receiving a lot of phone calls into the bank. Of course, this is in the middle of the day, and people were calling in for business at the bank and wanted to know why the bank was closed. So he was becoming frustrated with all that. In exchange, what they did was ask that they send in a cell phone that he would send out another one of the victims, and he did. So I was relieved. What that meant for me is that Louviere himself wanted to cooperate initially.
When I saw the second hostage leave, just like the first one, it was a sense of relief. But none of us knew what was going to happen next.
He kept saying, I just want to talk with my wife. I just want to talk. And he kept repeating that over and over again. I assumed he had mental issues at that point, you know, because, I mean, there's other ways of talking to your estranged wife and taking over a bank. The negotiators were telling him, well, Chad, you have to come out, or they were trying to talk him out. But I felt that he just wanted to vent.
But at around 8 o'clock, he releases a third hostage. As a show of good faith, at that point, Tommy was exhausted. You can almost hear the desperation in his voice for this to be resolved peacefully. And he had pretty much given his all.
Other people tried to talk Chad Louviere into surrendering.
Those people that were talking to him were primarily his friends, people that knew him.
Yes? Hey, buddy. Hey. I think we've come with an agreement. Just hear me out, okay? If you trust me, let Adele and Janine walk out the door. After they walk out, I'll come pick you up myself. Just me and you, so we can talk, and then we'll make that drive to the sheriff's office for you, okay? I'm not gonna send them out and just sit here.
Listening to his voice and his tone, Chad was becoming a little bit agitated.
Chad, is there any way I can get you to work with me on this? Bro, y'all fail to realize I'm the one holding the cards here. Chad, just throw the guns up. Bro, I'm not doing that. The girls are not leaving and leaving me in here, and I'm not throwing the guns out and me staying in here. That's you know it is. The simplest way I can put this is if the girls are gone and the guns are gone, you're no threat to yourself. I'm gonna pick you up, I promise. I don't know what else to say to Chad. No, when girls don't stay with me, I told you, bro, they gotta get the car with me. Chad, please just let them out.
When you're negotiating with a law enforcement officer who's in a hostage situation, you have to keep in mind that they're probably not going to come out. They don't want to face their friends, and usually it ends up in a suicide by cop where they want the police to come in and shoot them instead of them killing themselves because they know the consequences of when they get out. Just the thought of being with inmates that they put in prison is terrifying to them.
I I don't really feel like they were connecting with him. They were just trying to like, let's get the girls out, let's get safe, without really making an emotional connection with him.
It reached a point where Chad just didn't want to speak with them anymore.
We were told at this point that this thing may not end as good as we thought, even though he had released some of them, that there's a possibility that he would actually kill himself and kill the hostages.
There was one point where I was sitting there. He had put his gun in his mouth. I turned around and walked away. I said, I'm not gonna stand here and watch you do this.
It just seemed like the situation was just hopeless.
You know, it would not be uncommon for us to get calls like this. That would happen often every week. And typically, when you didn't get the calls where they'd say, this is going perfect, it's wonderful, thank you for the training, I just wanted you to know. It was always, this one's really bad. As the situation was described to me, it really struck me as being a very different kind of situation. Typically speaking, the most dangerous situations are those that have a romantic relationship gone bad. If it's being driven totally on hurt, anger, frustration, it's all emotional. And you often find this in men who are very controlling, who want to dominate every aspect of the relationship. When you get to a point where the wife decides to leave, that's a pretty significant blow to some of these guys who say, you don't walk out on me, I own you. And as I asked them questions and more information developed, I learned of the events leading up to it. Several hours before, he had, in his police car, in uniform, had pulled the car over with a woman in it.
They found out that he had a maester, and he put her in his car, raped her, and left her on the side of the road.
He had raped her and left her his business card.
But he didn't kill her. It's like he almost wanted her to live and go tell everybody what he had done.
And that was a very significant thing for me, because a police officer knows very well the consequences of that sort of action. To me, it sounded like he was taking a step from which he could not turn back. So my immediate assessment was, I think at a minimum, he's going to kill his wife and then himself. We could also see some additional deaths. So I think you could not fault someone for coming to the conclusion that they had to try to rescue these people.
At one point, there was a call in. The snipers had actually had Louviere in sight and wanted to receive the call of what command wanted to do. Before we come to a conclusion that we have to take action, I always ask a number of key questions. One of the first questions I always ask, has Chad asked for anything? What does he want? You know, we're trying to determine why he's doing what he's doing. And it was really surprising that he really had not
ask for much. But then the sheriff and the chief told me that Chad had been saying that he just wanted to talk to somebody. That's a valuable and important piece to move forward. And I think their initial efforts were focused on getting him to surrender, and then they would talk to him. It seemed to me as though they were sort of repetitively droning on about, come out, come out, come out. That was appearing to frustrate Chad. So my view was, there is still a possibility to negotiate with people like Chad.
So they pretty much was told to stand down because they believed that it was possible that the situation can be resolved peacefully.
I said, talk to him now. Let him vent his frustrations about whatever he felt was going wrong in his life at work or at home, and only then would we stand a chance to get him to cooperate. And that's when I thought, knowing that we had one of the FBI negotiators on scene, Gloria Newport, I thought she would be a really well-suited individual to talk to Chad and to get him to talk about his problems. I trained Gloria to be a negotiator, and she's non-threatening. You like her immediately. She has a lot of great qualities that make her a good negotiator. The chief and the sheriff thought I was crazy because his having raped a woman and then killed a woman that he didn't really know, they believe was indicative of him having this hatred of women.
I never thought I would negotiate. Chad Louviere obviously hated women, and there was no way he was going to talk to a female.
I didn't see it that way. In some cases, it'd be easier for a man to express his feelings to an empathic female than to a fellow police officer for whom he already had a long relationship. But they continued to do what they were doing.
They continued to call, and finally, one of the girls inside answered the phone.
Hello?
Janine.
Yes.
How are you? It's Jim.
I'm doing okay.
Well, I'm tired.
Okay.
Okay.
Janine, I believe she might have been the manager. She started talking on the phone, and she was very good at it.
Is there any chance Chad would chat with me?
I can ask.
Hello?
Hello, who am I speaking to?
Jim? How you doing, Chad?
All right, but I'm going to speak to somebody that I know.
Well, I don't think there's a soul in here you know. You pretty much ran him off. Poor Aaron gave up and said there's obviously nothing I can do for this gentleman and went home.
Well, that's because they just don't want to believe in what I'm telling them. I don't know what y'all thinking. I still want to hurt these girls like I told him. These girls would have been hurt. They've been hurt a long time ago.
Well, Doug, let me ask you, you don't think that you had enough trust in Aaron to trust him in what he was offering to you? I thought he was your friend.
He is my friend.
Well, I'll tell you, the man tried awfully hard on your behalf. I sat here and watched him, and it's too bad that you didn't find it within yourself to trust him, because he was ready, willing, and able to, and did go to bat for you.
In my opinion, his tone and demeanor was pretty straight to the point. He was just asking him very direct questions about what had happened, how he's seen this thing resolved, and that began to aggravate Chad again.
Jim, can you just be quiet for just a minute? I've been trying to tell you something. And that's the thing is, y'all don't want to listen to me. Y'all want to give me y'all plan that y'all don't want to. Y'all cut me off every chance y'all get, and that is ridiculous.
Cut you off on this telephone?
Yes,
There's
sir.
no one to cut you off on this telephone, Chad. Now, you have hung up on us about 25 times.
Exactly, because I'm sick and tired
Well,
of
that's
BS.
not cutting you off. Let's call a spade here.
I don't know what they were telling him, but I just remember hearing him being very agitated. And the whole thing I knew was that I wanted to keep him not agitated.
Louvieres, he actually told them to not allow him to get back on the phone again. He said, tell Jim not to call back here. Chad just refused to speak to the negotiator at that point. There was no conversation at all. The concern was that if nobody was on the phone, that he would have an opportunity to harm the victims.
I got worried that he was gonna get violent again, verbally violent and sexually. Sexual assault was his thing. He was very sexually driven, so I oftentimes would submit to him sexually because if I didn't, I knew that it could get violent.
We later learned that he raped Janine, he raped Nadell, and there was just several things that he did.
I think at that point, the only thing that was going through our head was just to comply with whatever it was that he wanted. You know, especially knowing that he shot Pamela, that if any of us didn't comply with him, I mean, in my brain, I was thinking that he was gonna shoot us. We just did what he told us to do. We were all in survival mode.
Everybody was frustrated. He just wouldn't pick up the phone. I think everybody pretty much thought it wasn't going to end well.
Which eventually led into putting Gloria on the phone.
They were out of options, and so I was pretty much the last resort. So they came up to me and said, we're going to put you on the phone. And I'm looking at them like they're crazy, like, this is my very first negotiation. Honestly, the mere fact of knowing that you had people's lives in your hands, and if you did it wrong, people would die, I was extremely concerned. But I just said, okay, I'll get on the phone and see what I can do. I spoke with Gary Noesner on the phone briefly, and he gave me a little encouragement.
Just be yourself, be comfortable, remember your training, be a good listener, and try to let Chad know that you're not there to make his life worse, you're there to help him. But also know full well that this may not end the way we want.
I was sitting at the head of the table, and it was just a room full of men. And everybody looked a little nervous. I got on the phone, and a female answered.
Hello?
As I recall, the conversation opens up where Gloria's talking to Chad's wife.
Hi, Dal. Hi. Hi, this is Gloria. Hi. Just want to make sure you're okay. I'm just fine. Is Chad okay also? He is just fine. He's just sitting down on the floor with us. Okay. Can I talk to him?
Oh.
And I said, Chad.
Hi, this is Gloria.
I didn't tell him I was FBI. I was just there to listen and to talk to him, and would he be willing to talk?
I know you have things you want to get off your chest. You want to just tell me a little bit about it so we kind of understand what's going on?
And there was total silence. I think everybody in the room thought he was going to hang up on me. They were all staring at me. I could feel all these eyes. I think a few minutes went by, and I could hear him take a deep breath. And he just sighed, and he just started talking.
5 months ago, I left the
Right.
a lot of problems. I didn't think that could have been worked out, but she'll tell you, she didn't know how to tell me she wanted to work them out, so I left. Well, through all of this, there's been a lot of stuff said, back and forth.
Once Gloria and Chad began to talk, Gloria expressed a genuine interest in wanting to hear his side of whatever happened. And that kind of opened a floodgate.
I love this girl dearly, and I'd love to work things out with her. Then I don't work out now, and I know that.
Chad Louviere just thought he was a good husband, didn't know why his wife wanted to leave him. In his mind, thought that she should be at his side forever.
She's not in love with him anymore.
I mean, she really seems to care about what happens to you. She doesn't want to see you get hurt.
Well, like I said, it was just a roller coaster ride.
I mean, I'm sure you're going through a really tough time right now. And I understand that. And I just want to help you out.
The active listening skills they teach us, a lot of the things that they taught us at Quantico just kicked in at the last minute.
Listening in the eyes of many is a very passive endeavor. You shut up, somebody else talks. Active listening is about asking open-ended questions, questions that they don't respond with a mere yes or no. Well, can you tell me more about that? We ask for expanding questions that give us more and more information. And then when we hear a feeling, when the person says, I'm just so frustrated, we try to draw that out. What's the major cause of that frustration? We don't just say we're listening, we prove it. It seems like a small thing, but it's a very important tool of human influence. And we can create a relationship of trust.
I can tell in her voice that she still cares.
Well,
And I think you just can't give up on it right now.
that's nice hearing it from her, but there's something that you have to do first.
And maybe you will. Maybe you have to sit down and talk with her. You know, maybe the sheriff's office. You know, I can sit there with you. All you really want is just to sit down and talk with her, straighten things out.
She had the sense, I think properly, that he hadn't had those kinds of discussions with her, his wife, where he shared with her what he was thinking. And it's a great way to get him to explore further, you know, that maybe there is a chance for this relationship. Maybe I can salvage something out of this.
And he thought he would have the chance to do that. I was pretty sure that they were not going to let him talk with her, but in my head, I just believed that they were going to have the opportunity to iron things out. Then he would go to prison and, you know, and it would be over. Time just went on, you know, and he said, you know, the women are hungry. Can I get breakfast? And that's always a good sign when they ask for food. Obviously, he was concerned about them, and so when he asked for food to be brought in, that gave me hope. After they had breakfast, I called again, and the SWAT leader was telling me to ask him if he would be willing to come out. And he took a deep breath and said, okay. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Nobody had never seen this coming. I don't think there was any way that you could have predicted that this would actually happen.
I think just reassuring him that he might be able to talk to his wife to kind of resolve things in a good way was the breaking point, maybe. I gave him hope, pretty much. And he said, I'm gonna come out, but I'm gonna come out with a blanket over my head and the two women. And the SWAT team leader's going, no way, because he could have, you know, weapons underneath his blanket. So they're writing me notes like, no, not gonna happen. And Chad, he said no. I think he just didn't want any cameras or anybody to see his face.
They went back and forth talking about that and trying to get him to understand that that wasn't an acceptable plan. That was a major sticking point. And of course, you're fatigued, you've been doing this all day, and that's when a lot of the frustration had come out.
I'd been up since 6:30 in the morning, the Thursday that the hostage situation began, and I had no sleep whatsoever. I was just so exhausted and so tired, and Chad kept insisting that's the way it was gonna come out. I kind of lost it for a minute. And I just said, you know, Chad, it's just not gonna happen. And everybody looked at me like their jaws dropped. And he kind of shut up for a minute, and I thought he was gonna hang up on me. And I felt so bad. I'm thinking, oh no, I've lost it, and everybody thought this is it. He was real quiet, and he just said, okay. And then he said, I'm going to come out, and I'm gonna raise my shirt so they can tell I have no weapons.
I'll stand in the door. I'll, lift up each one of my pants legs so y'all can see nothing's there. It'll be very slow. Y'all be able to see everything. I'll have on nothing but a t-shirt.
He voluntarily said, I'm going to do this with no blanket so you can see that I'm gonna come out peacefully. And I, in total disbelief that everything was just kind of flowing, and it was amazing. It was just one of the most amazing moments.
So when it was time, Janine was instructed to go out through the door and hold the door open. And then I was told to come out. And then it was like, okay, Chad, you can come out. And then that's when
I heard this loud noise, and I thought, oh my God, they killed him.
the SWAT team had set off a flashbang in front of the bank. And then all of a sudden, all these SWAT team members came from the side of the bank, pushed us down.
Step out here, step out!
Chad was down on the ground, spread eagle with weapons all over him. And they ushered Janine and I off in an ambulance.
They arrested Chad, and the two women were free, and it was over.
My first thoughts were, it's over. I don't have to deal with him anymore. He's gone. It's done. It's finished. I will never see him again. He will never be in my life again, and this is over.
Just to know that nobody else had gotten hurt, I was so grateful. Till this day, I can't believe that he surrendered peacefully. I just shake my head and just, thank God that it ended the way it did.
You cannot describe a situation that was more likely to end in additional loss of life. And yet, a good negotiator applying really good active listening trains and skills were able to connect with this man and prevent further loss of life.
I think having a female negotiate was the right decision, not to take away from the other negotiators because they did a tremendous job getting other hostages out. But I think the men were trying to talk him out, and I think we're really listening that he needed somebody to talk to.
I think it's just because women are better listeners.
I didn't want to say that right now. You're trying to hook me, I know.
Just sitting here almost 30 years later after this incident, I'm doing well. Domestic violence is hard to navigate. However, once you're out of it and once you're safe, you go from being a victim to a survivor. And when you start to walk in the shoes of a survivor, you start to realize your own strengths and your own ability to navigate situations. You can really pick up the pieces and really put together a life that is abuse-free and that you're proud of.